Slide is not visible for you. It has stopped, I think.
Yes, sir. Ingredient of supply slide. Hello.
Okay, starting with the third chapter, that is concept of supply in terms of goods and service tax. So while dealing with or starting with this particular chapter, you have to understand or you have to see what are the major 4 aspects in understanding the supply in terms of goods or service tax. First thing is what is supply, second is the time of supply, third is the place of supply, and fourth is the valuation of supply. So we'll be understanding and dealing with or answering one and one questions individually. So first thing, ingredients of supply, as per the definition that has been provided in the sale of goods act, you have to understand what does the supply mean. So all forms of supply of goods and services. So whatever any type of goods or any types of services that you provide, accordingly तुमचा धक्का लागतोय वाटतं तिथं. So it is made or agreed to be made. So in this way, now what will be the further composition of the supply? That is, you can conduct the supply as on today also, or the activity may be conducted after a future date. So it is a part of a consideration wherein the supply is conducted today, or it may be conducted at a certain future date. So made or agreed to be made. So a part of an executed or part of an executory contract for consideration. So always there must be amount of consideration or a certain value for a particular transaction or for a particular contract. So unless and until there is no proper consideration or proper transaction value, the supply activity cannot be conducted and it cannot be identified as under the provision or under the purview of GST. Next consideration, it is by a person. So always there must be a person associated with this consideration, and as the definition that has been provided for a particular person under the Sale of Goods Act or under the Income Tax Act, at every stage or point of time, you have to see or you have to identify what type of goods or what type of services that you are providing in the course or furtherance of business. So this particular activity may be conducted at the present place or it may be conducted at a certain future place. So what type of activity that you're conducting, when is the duration of that particular respective activity, all these things you have to identify, and accordingly you have to conduct the business activities. So this is the major consideration with respect to the ingredients of the supply. Now various forms of supply. So what are the various forms in which the supply can be identified and can be defined under the sale of goods, under the purview of Goods and Service Tax Act of 2016. Just a minute. Just a minute, I am checking.
What software will use that? It will arbitrarily set y equals to beta 0 plus beta 1. Like some line it will draw over there. So some beta 0, some beta 1.
Salud. Okay, now forms of supply. So while understanding the forms of supply, the major 4 categories that has been provided at this particular stage is the supply can be divided under 4 types, that is vesting of ownership, swapping without the use of money, allowing use for the limited period, or at the part of an disposal. The first thing, understanding of vesting of ownership. So a supply can be identified or it can be defined under पायात अडकला असेल तुमचे ते फोन. Okay. So vesting of ownership, first thing, the sell, main two types of supply are, first thing, in the transaction of a sell and in the transaction of an transfer. So sell is a part of an executed contract wherein a particular transaction gets settled very immediately. That is, you want to purchase a goods or you want to purchase a particular service and you are conducting the business activities or services immediately. So in this way, the sell transaction can be conducted immediately. Transfer, so at this particular stage you are not conducting the business activity, you are not exchanging anything, but what you are doing, you are just transferring the goods or the services from one person to another person. So vesting of ownership. So in case of sell, the ownership gets transferred at 100%, and in case of transfer, the ownership is not transferred, only the right to use or right of possession has been transferred. So in case of sell, the ownership transfer is 100%, whereas in case of transfer, there is no transfer of ownership rights. Swapping without the use of money. So at this, now what are the various concerns wherein actual involvement of money is not into existence. So the actual involvement of money is not into existence in two cases. That is, first thing is the barter situation wherein you in what is the meaning of barter, that is the goods have been exchanged for goods and services have been exchanged for services. So in this way, exchange of goods for goods and services for service is an example of barter wherein there is no use of money. So but it is still called as a form of an supply wherein why it is called as a supply, because the goods are moving from one place to another place, from one person to another person. And in terms of the Sale of Goods Act, it is specifically meaning or specifically defined as the movement of goods from one place to another place, that is actual disposable of goods. And second thing is the exchange wherein the goods are same case. Now in barter, what you do in barter, you take a certain consideration wherein the goods are being transferred from one person to another person, and another requirement, that is whatever goods you require, that have been availed by the another person. But in case of exchange, you can provide one goods and in exchange you can take another goods, or you can take the same goods of a different quantity or different quality. So it is a part of an exchange. Third perspective or the third forms of supply is allowing the use for a limited period. Now, certain goods which have been provided for the unlimited period and certain goods have been provided for a limited period. So the first thing or the first consideration is the concept of licensing. Now, in terms of licensing, wherein you can provide a license to a particular person, which is always a paid form, and if it is a particular paid form, then you can collect the money or certain charges from that particular person, and accordingly you can provide the license for this particular use. Another consideration, it is a part of an rental. So rental is a particular situation or a consideration wherein you can you can ask for a particular person to give you a rent, and accordingly you can charge the a person for conducting or using those particular services or goods whichever is been provided. And lastly, leasing. Leasing is a type of an contract wherein at a several stages or point of time you can conduct the business transactions and for a very specific period or for a specific duration. That is, it may be either 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and so on, and at a specific terms and conditions or the guidelines that has been specifically provided. So it is for a limited period of time the supply can be conducted, which is either a licensing, a rental activity, or a leasing activity. And lastly, a amount of an disposable. So in terms of an disposable, it specifically means that is the goods have been ultimately disposed and there is no exchange or further exchange of goods and services between two parties or more than two parties. Can a transaction without consideration as a supply? Yes, what do you think? Can a transaction without consideration be taxed as a supply, or it is not a supply? Okay, we'll look further. So schedule number 1, supplies made without consideration treated as supply under GST. So yes, the answer is yes. If there is no consideration in your supply, still the particular transaction will be called as a supply. So permanent transfer or disposable business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. So at any stage or any point of time, if there is amount of consideration or if there is no amount of consideration, still that particular thing will be called as a supply. Why? Because there is actual physical movement of goods, there is proper transfer or disposable of business assets. So if the business assets or if the business goods have been moving from one place to another place, if it is either been transferred or if it has either been disposed, then the tracks or then the supply comes into existence, then the movement of goods comes into existence, and you get a certain applicability of input tax credit. Supply of goods and services or both between the related persons or between distinct persons as specified under section 25(4) of CGST Act 2017 when made in the course or the furtherance of business. So there should be a persons must be a related person. So related person since as the definition has been provided in this Sale of Goods Act or Income Tax Act or the Goods and Service Tax Act, if there is a transaction or if there is a transfer between two distinct persons, then accordingly it will be called as a supply. So supply is positively there whenever there is a transfer or whenever there is an exchange of goods and services between two persons or two parties or the two related or the two distinct persons in the course of a business. So for conducting the current business or for conducting a future business, if there is a transfer, then it will be called as a supply. Supply or receipt of goods by an agent on behalf of the principal. So the supply can be called as a supply if the supply has been done either by the agent or either by the principal, or if it is done by the agent on behalf of the principal. So whosoever is acting on the particular business transaction, that particular activity will be called as a supply, whether it is an agent or whether it is a principal or whether it has been done by both of them. So in this way, the receipt or the payment of the goods or the supply of the goods is an applicable situation in terms of agent or principal. Import of services by a taxable person from a related person or from any of his establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of the business. So any importing of these services also. So if you are trying to import any of these services which has been located outside India, then that also will be under the purview of supply. Why? Because we are actually or physically exchanging the goods and services. So whenever there is an actual physical exchange of the goods and services, then at this particular stage, it will be called as a perspective of a supply, and accordingly, the supply is into existence. Now, Schedule 2, activities to be treated as supply of the goods or supply of services. The first thing that you need to understand or that you need to identify is what is a goods and what is a services, and how do you define or how do you distinguish in a proper way what is a goods and what is a services. Supply treated as that of goods and supply treated as that of services. So now let's look at one picture and you will answer me these particular questions. So whether now we'll cross check what you have understood at this particular stage. So all three of you, Sejal, Shivani and Mehul, unmute कीजिए और आपको ये questions answer करना है whether it is a supply or whether it is not a supply. A sold goods to B. The property in the goods has been transferred from A to B. Decide on the following. Is it a supply? Is it a supply of goods or is it a supply of services?
Sir, supply of goods.
First thing, is it a supply?
Yes.
Why? Why it is supply? Read the statement very carefully. The answer lies itself. There itself.
Goods are transferred, supplied,
What is this?
sold. Okay.
Sold. So once the sold is done, then which type of contract? It is an executed contract. So the ownership, rights, possession, everything is been transferred from one person to another person, and hence it is. Why is it a supply? So because it has been transferred. Now what we have to identify whether it is a goods or whether it is a services. So in the first statement it is specifically mentioned A sold goods to B. So यहाँ पे goods आ गया यानी आपका सप्लाई आ गया, सप्लाई आ गया यानी आपका ट्रांसफर हो गया, और अगर ट्रांसफर हुआ तो किसका हो गया? ट्रांसफर आपके गुड्स का हो गया. These types of questions will be asked in the examination. The same question will be provided for you and these type of questions, and you have to answer this particular question. You have to identify whether it is supply, and if it is a supply, whether it is a supply for goods or whether it is a supply of services. Case number 2. A enters into an agreement with B on 15th January 2018 to effect a sale of 1000 dozens of mangoes on 15th March 2018 at rupees 800 per dozen. Is it a supply?
No.
Why?
No, sir. Because here क्या बोल competition.
कौन सी competition?
Sorry, sir. It is an agreement.
हाँ. Would you like to refer the definition once again? Ingredients of supply याद करो. Ingredients में हमने क्या क्या देखा था? All forms of supply of goods and or service. So उसमें form of कोई goods है क्या या कोई form of service है क्या? Made or agreed to be made. A
Agreed to
enters
be
into
made.
an agreed to be made. है?
Yes, sir.
Right. Forms of an goods. Goods मतलब क्या? Which is a movable property, which is a tangible property. Mangoes आप देख सकते हो, mangoes को हाथ लगा सकते हो, mangoes को यहाँ से वहाँ हिला सकते हो.
Yes.
Yes or yes. So what is it a supply?
Yes.
Yes. Is it a
Yes.
supply of a goods or a supply of a service?
Goods.
Goods. Why? Because mangoes
Fruit,
आपको
of
दिख
course,
रहे हैं ना.
mangoes.
Goods यानी क्या? Which is visible, which is tangible and which is movable. Services क्या है? Which is not visible, which is not tangible and which cannot be seen. That is जो differentiation, जैसे आपके fixed assets, current assets होते हैं, उसी टाइप में आपको asset का classification differentiation करना है. Clear? अभी समझ में आ रहा है? पहले इसमें एग्रीमेंट था, पहले इसमें सॉरी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ सेल था, यानी आपका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट परफॉर्मेंस से आपको सप्लाई होना चाहिए. दूसरे इसमें ठीक है आपका एग्रीमेंट है, लेकिन एग्रीमेंट कब है? आपको एक फ्यूचर डेट में कंडक्ट करना है, बट स्टिल इट इज कॉल्ड एज अ सप्लाई. व्हाई? बिकॉज इट इज बिटवीन द पार्टीज. A has provided goods to B on rent. A has not transferred the title of the goods to B, but has only provided him the right to use the goods. Decide, is it a supply? Read the question again. ते होतं ना तुमच्याकडे, त्याच्याने होतं ना.
नाही ना, बसच नाही.
हम्म.
आता दुसरं काढलं. आपलं
जाधव काकाचं.
हां.
Sir,
हम्म.
hello. On rent दिया
हाँ.
है, but वो यूज कर रहे हैं goods.
So is it a supply or
है ना
not?
sir?
Supply.
Yes, sir. Supply of goods.
Supply of goods.
No.
But sir, क्या सप्लाई कर रहे हैं वो थोड़ी बताया ना, goods ही लिखा है.
तोडायची ती तुटत नाही का त्याच्याने? थांबा. हे डब्बी निघते ना. A has provided goods to B on rent. ठीक है, यहाँ पे आपने पढ़ा, लेकिन ये क्या है? रेंट क्या है? चलो पीछे. वेरियस फॉर्म्स ऑफ सप्लाई. सप्लाई है या नहीं है? सप्लाई है, लेकिन एक्चुअल गुड्स का सप्लाई नहीं आता है वो, सो इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ एन सर्विस. Case number 3. Case number 4. A has given land on lease to B for 10 years on annual rent of rupees 1 crore per annum with an annual increase of 10% every year over the previous year's rent. Decide, is it a supply?
सर्विस है सर, ये पक्का है पर सप्लाई.
सर्विस है ये पक्का है, बराबर. सप्लाई है या नहीं है?
नो.
Why? Justify.
Supply,
सप्लाई.
एप्लीकेबल होगा जीएसटी इस पे?
हाँ. हाँ सर.
क्यों? यानी अभी तक आपको कुछ समझा ही नहीं है. Read it very carefully. A has given land on lease to B. लैंड क्या है? मूवेबल या इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी?
इमूवेबल. ओके सर.
एंड जीएसटी किस पे एप्लीकेबल है? मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी पे.
मूवेबल पर प्रॉपर्टी.
लैंड आप एक जगह से दूसरी जगह हिला सकते हो? नो.
नो.
लैंड कैन नॉट बी ट्रांसफर्ड फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर प्लेस, इट इज इमूवेबल. और इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी पे जीएसटी एप्लीकेबल ही नहीं है, उस पर प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स लगता है, एंड हेंस इट इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ सप्लाई. सो जब तक आपका सप्लाई नहीं आता तब तक आप वो गुड्स है या सर्विस है आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते, और जब तक आप वो आइडेंटिफाई नहीं करोगे गुड्स है या सर्विस है, आप उसमें टैक्स पे नहीं कर सकते. क्लियर?
यस सर. नाउ
Yes.
क्लियर.
सो रीड द क्वेश्चन वेरी केयरफुली. स्मॉल केसलेट्स आपको ऐसे ही आने वाले, और ये सिंपल एग्जांपल्स आपको कंपनीज में भी सॉल्व करना है. नाउ A has let out premises to B. The factory consists of building wherein there are residential quarters for the laborers and factory premises for manufacturing operations. Decide, it is a supply? And is it a supply of goods or it is a supply of services? हरी अप. 10 केसेस है, 50 चल रहा है अभी. मेहुल आप आंसर करोगे अभी. A has let out premises to B. The factory consists of building wherein there are residential quarters for the laborers and factory premises for manufacturing operations. Decide, is it a supply?
No sir.
Why?
Sir, movable property नहीं है ना ये sir.
फिर से पढ़ो, फर्स्ट सेंटेंस पढ़ो.
A has let out premises to B.
लेट आउट मतलब क्या? हम क्या वो सेल कर रहे हैं? हम क्या वो ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं एक जगह से दूसरी जगह? सिर्फ भाड़े पे दिया है ना वो.
Okay.
लेट आउट मतलब क्या? किराए पे देना या भाड़े पे देना, फॉर अ लीजिंग पर्पस. और कोई भी अगर आप लीज पे लेते हो तो व्हाट इज इट? यहाँ पे एक्चुअल हम गुड्स का मूवमेंट कर रहे हैं क्या? या तो हम फैक्ट्री या तो बिल्डिंग या रेसिडेंशियल क्वार्टर्स या लेबरर्स का मूवमेंट कर रहे हैं? नो. What we are doing, we are just exchanging the property or we are just taking this property for using purpose. और अगर कोई भी प्रॉपर्टी हमको यूज के लिए मिलती तो वो क्या हो जाता है? इट इज अ सर्विस. डिफरेंशिएशन लास्ट केस में और फर्स्ट केस में. ए हैज गिवन लैंड ऑन लीज, यहाँ पे लैंड का था, यहाँ पे बिल्डिंग क्या है? प्रीमाइसेस आपको सिर्फ यूज करने के लिए मिला है.
तो सप्लाई नहीं है ना सर वो?
सप्लाई नहीं है,
हाँ.
सर्विसेस आ गए ना इसमें.
मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के लिए यूज हो रहा है ना सर पर प्रीमाइसेस?
हाँ, द फैक्ट्री कंसिस्ट ऑफ अ बिल्डिंग वेयरइन देयर आर रेसिडेंशियल क्वार्टर्स और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. हाँ, एंड फैक्ट्री प्रीमाइसेस नो. अगर फिर भी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग रहा तो भी मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स कहाँ है वहां पे?
हाँ.
So it is an service. Let out premises हो गया मतलब वो service आ गया. Because movement of building वहाँ पे जो आपका main purpose of contract कौन सा है, building का है, वो अगर movement या land आपका movement नहीं होता है, then it is not a consideration. Now next, case number 6. A provide wood to B. He asked B to cut the wood into even pieces and carve out various pictures on the wood. B cut the wood into small pieces and carves out pictures on the wood. Decide, is it a supply?
Yes, sir. It is supply.
Why? Justify.
सर वो वुड बी को वुड सप्लाई कर रहा है ना. ए
हाँ.
प्रोवाइड्स वुड टू बी.
हाँ.
इज अ मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी सर. इट इज एन
राइट,
गुड.
ऐसा ही एक्सप्लेनेशन चाहिए. ए मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है, टेंजिबल प्रॉपर्टी है, फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टी है. वी कैन टच, सी एंड फील दैट प्रॉपर्टी. करेक्ट. नाउ इज इट अ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और इज इट अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज?
इट इज अ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड.
गुड्स.
सर्विस.
अभी सोचो. B cut the wood into small pieces and carves out pictures on wood. Decide whether it is a good or service.
सर्विस सर, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ बना के मतलब पिक्चर्स बना के दे रहे हैं ना बस.
What do you think, सेजल, मेहुल? गुड्स है या सर्विस है? गुड्स है तो क्यों, सर्विस है तो क्यों?
सर सर्विस है क्योंकि सोल्ड नहीं है. ए हैव नॉट सोल्ड टू गुड बी. जो प्रोवाइड किया है सर, इसलिए सर्विस है.
परफेक्ट. बिकॉज यहाँ पे कहीं पर भी आपको ट्रांजैक्शन की वैल्यू नहीं दिख रही है, तो जब तक आपका ट्रांजैक्शन कंसिडरेशन नहीं होता है, वी कैन नॉट ट्रीट इट एज अ सेल्स और सर्विसेज. ना ए प्रोवाइड वुड्स टू बी. सो यहाँ पे अगर वो प्रोवाइड कहता है तो पर्पस क्या है? उसने सिर्फ उसको गुड्स दिए थे, लेकिन वो गुड्स किस लिए दिए? उस पर कुछ तो कार्विंग करने के लिए, सेल करने के लिए नहीं, या प्रॉपर्टी या पोजेशन के लिए या ओनरशिप के लिए नहीं. अगेन द ओनरशिप इज बीन रिटर्न टू ए. So hence it is a part of a service. Good. Clearly explained. Now, case number 7. A has rented shop to B at a monthly rental of rupees 2 lakh. Decide, is it a supply? Very simple.
No. No, sir.
A has rented shop to B. रेंट एग्रीमेंट क्या है आपका? क्या आप शॉप हिला रहे हो एक जगह से दूसरी जगह पे?
No.
शॉप वहीं पर ही है, सिर्फ आपको यूज करने के लिए दिया है. सो इफ यू आर यूजिंग एनी ऑफ द कमोडिटी, देन व्हाट इट इज कॉल्ड? बघू बघू बघू. एक नंबर. हेलो, चलो चलो फास्ट. A has rented shop to B at a monthly rental of rupees 2 lakh. Decide.
It is just not a supply and services.
Service है, बराबर. It is not a supply because there is no physical movement of goods and it is a service. Case number 8. A agrees to dry clean B's clothes. In return, B agrees to click A's photograph. A agrees not to open dry clean shop in B's neighborhood, and in return, B agrees to click photographs of A. A agrees to design B house and in return B agrees not to object to construction of A's house in his own neighborhood. A agrees to construct 3 flats for B on land owned by B and in return B agrees to provide 1 flat to A without any monetary consideration. चलो अब तीनों एक एक बताएंगे. First thing, A agrees to dry clean B clothes and in return B agrees to click A photograph. Is it a supply? Sejal.
No, sir.
Why?
Because, sir, it is an agreement between A and B that A dry cleans B's clothes and B agree to click photograph. It is an agreement, sir. That's
So
why
sell
it is
and
not
agreement to
supply.
sell both are applicable na in Sale of Goods Act in terms of GST. एक मिनट अब आप मेजर
Yes,
कंफ्यूजन
sir,
आपने
but it is not
wait
movable.
what is this? Read. Made or agreed to be made in the course or furtherance of business. Made यानी क्या? या तो आप क्लोथ्स ड्राई क्लीन करके अभी दो या तो आप क्लोथ्स ड्राई क्लीन करके बाद में दो. इन द कोर्स ऑफ बिजनेस, मेरा बिजनेस अभी चल रहा है, मुझे ड्राई क्लीन अभी करके चाहिए या मैं कल दोपहर में आता हूँ, मुझे क्लोथ्स कल ड्राई क्लीन करके देना. बिजनेस मेड और एग्री टू बी मेड. नाउ कम टू योर केस. A agrees to dry clean B's clothes. In return, B agrees to click A's photograph. Agreed or made or agreed to be made. Perfect है. Ingredients of supply आपको दिख रहा है.
Yes, sir.
In return, यहाँ पे क्या है? बार्टर का सिस्टम आ गया. सो बार्टर यानी मनी एक्सचेंज. Either it can be a form of an sell, it can be form of a non-sell contract also. बार्टर यानी क्या? फर्स्ट थिंग, उसने आपको क्लोज दिया, आप उसका फोटोग्राफ निकाल रहे हो. इट इज अ प्रॉपर एक्सचेंज. प्रॉपर एक्सचेंज आ गया यानी क्या? कंसिडरेशन है, वैल्यू उसमें है. सो इट इज अ सप्लाई. Yes, it is a supply. It is a supply of a goods or a supply of a services.
Services.
कुठे ठेव? तुमच्याकडेच होती. Okay. A agrees not to open dry clean shop in B's neighborhood. In return, B agrees to click photographs of A. Now, what is the change in scenario? Is it a supply? Shivani. A agrees not to open dry clean shop in B's neighborhood. In return, B agrees to click photographs of A.
Not a supply.
Not a supply. Why? Good.
Because यहाँ पे कोई एग्रीमेंट नहीं हो रहा है और मूवेबल भी नहीं है, सर.
राइट, एग्रीमेंट नहीं हो रहा है. दैट इज ए एग्रीज नॉट टू ओपन ड्राई क्लीन शॉप. की अगर वन वे ट्रांजैक्शन है तो वन वे ट्रांजैक्शन में आपका एग्रीमेंट नहीं हो सकता. ओनली ए इज परफॉर्मिंग, सॉरी, बी इज परफॉर्मिंग एंड ए इज नॉट परफॉर्मिंग. थर्ड, A agrees to design B's house and in return B agrees not to object to construction of A house in his neighborhood. Is it a supply?
It is not a supply.
Goods or service? A agrees to design B's house. अगर आपके पास कोई आर्किटेक्ट है और आर्किटेक्ट आपका घर डिजाइन करके देता है तो वो आपको सर्विस दे रहा है या नहीं दे रहा है?
Yes.
अभी बोलो सप्लाई है या नहीं है?
और सिर्फ वन साइड ट्रांजैक्शन है ना सर.
बी सेकंड देखो ना. इन रिटर्न बी एग्रीज नॉट टू ऑब्जेक्ट टू कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ ए हाउस. अगर आपको किसी भी प्रीमाइसेस में किसी भी सोसाइटी में कुछ कंस्ट्रक्शन करना है तो सोसाइटी की एनओसी नहीं लेना पड़ती है. हाँ,
लेनी पड़ती है.
हाँ, फिर बी ने क्या कर दिया? बी ने आपको एनओसी प्रोवाइड कर दिया. और ए उसके बदले में क्या कर रहा है, उसका घर डिजाइन करके दे रहा है। सो अगर आप एनओसी मांगोगे तो एनओसी के 25,000 वो चार्जेस लेने वाला है, लेकिन उसके बदले में आपने क्या किया, उनका घर सजा के इंटीरियर करके बी को प्रोवाइड कर दिया। सो इज इट अ सप्लाई?
It is a supply of service.
Yes, it is a supply and it is a supply of services. Correct. A agrees to construct 3 flats for B on land owned by B. In return, B agrees to provide 1 flat to A without any monetary consideration. अभी बोलो सेजल। वेरी सिंपल, कुछ भी सोचना नहीं है। A agrees to construct 3 flats for B on the land owned by B. In return, B agrees to
supply of service.
पहले सप्लाई है क्या?
It is.
Is it a supply?
हाँ.
कैसे? मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी आपको कुछ दिख रही है, मूवेबल सर्विसेज आपको कुछ दिख रहा है, कंस्ट्रक्शन ए या बी कर रहा है।
अग्रीमेंट तो है ना, अग्रीमेंट तो है।
लैंड किसका है? बी का ही है। कंस्ट्रक्शन कौन कर रहा है? ए
Yes,
कर रहा है।
A
मिल
कर
रहा है
रहा
क्या
है.
कुछ? हाँ, विदाउट एनी मॉनेटरी कंसिडरेशन। रिटर्न में आपके गुड्स और सर्विसेज है क्या, वो देखो पहले। फर्स्ट आइडेंटिफाई दोज थिंग्स। ठीक है, आपने कहा कि एग्रीमेंट है, लेकिन एग्रीमेंट किसका है? मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का या इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का?
इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का है सर।
हाँ, तो इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी आ गया तो आपका जीएसटी एप्लीकेबल होगा उस पर? नहीं। यहाँ पे ए एग्रीज टू ड्राई क्लीन बीस क्लोथ, यहाँ पे भी ठीक है एग्रीमेंट है, लेकिन क्या है? ड्राई क्लीनिंग ऑफ क्लोथ। क्लोथ इज अ मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी, क्लोथ कैन बी ट्रांसफर्ड फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर प्लेस। अगेन फिर भी यहाँ पे भी एग्रीमेंट था, लेकिन यहाँ पे क्या था? नॉट टू ओपन, यानी विलिंगनेस नहीं था। सेम केस, ए एग्रीज टू डिजाइन बीज हाउस, बट इन रिटर्न वो एनओसी प्रोवाइड कर रहा है। एनओसी इन द सेंस अ पर्टिकुलर डॉक्यूमेंट, अ पर्टिकुलर सर्टिफिकेट। और इंटीरियर का आप क्या करोगे? इंटीरियर आपका यानी एक पर्टिकुलर इमेज नहीं होती, आपको इंटीरियर पेपर पे बना के देना है। सो इन दिस वे यहाँ पे सब जगह पे सप्लाई था, लेकिन यहाँ पे सप्लाई क्यों नहीं है? बिकॉज आपका एग्रीमेंट है, और वो एग्रीमेंट किसका है? फ्लैट का है, एंड फ्लैट कैन नॉट बी ट्रांसफर्ड और मूव फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर प्लेस। क्लियर?
यस सर।
Okay, now case number 9. A awards a contract to B to construct his house. B, by using his material and labor, construct A's house. Decide, is it a supply? And it is a supply of goods or it is a supply of services? वही ते वरचं लावा ना,
वेगळा नाही, असं नाही. मी आपलं असं नाहीच आहे, थोडंसं सेक्टर घालण्यासाठी केलं.
हे घ्या ना, त्याला एवढं वेळ घालणं, हे आहे ना एवढं मोठं.
जाऊ दे तुला आता.
A award a contract to B to construct his house. by using his material and labor construct A's house. Decide. कुछ मूवेबल दिख रहा है यहाँ पे? हेलो हेलो हेलो।
लेबर एंड लेबर
हाँ सर।
मटेरियल।
यस, लेबर एंड मटेरियल मूवमेंट है। मूवमेंट कहाँ से हो रहा है? बी के जगह से ए के जगह पे मूवमेंट हो रहा है। सो देयर इज अ मूवमेंट, मूवमेंट आ गया यानी क्या? इट एप्लीकेबिलिटी ऑफ जीएसटी, जीएसटी आ गया यानी क्या? सप्लाई कंपोजिशन में है। नाउ सप्लाई किसका होगा? गुड्स का होगा या सर्विसेज का होगा?
लेबर तो सर्विसेज में आता है सर, और मटेरियल गुड्स में आता है।
कोई भी एक, या टैक्सेबिलिटी डिफरेंट डिफरेंट करोगे आप? ये ऑप्शन है आपके पास। to charge a separate rate of taxation for material and a separate rate of tax for labor. हेलो
सर, जितना मटेरियल यूज होता है उस पे लेबर
हम्म।
का अमाउंट फिक्स होता है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है ना सर?
वो बाद में, पहले जब हमने जीएसटी के रेट्स आइडेंटिफाई किए थे 0%, 4%, 8%, 12%, 18%, उसमें हर किसी को रेट अलग अलग था, राइट?
यस सर।
कल आपने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा था मास कंजम्पशन
यस सर।
4% पे, तो मास कंजम्पशन किस में चला गया? द रेट ऑफ मटेरियल।
मटेरियल।
सर्विसेज अगर कोई प्रोवाइड कर रहा है तो सर्विसेज इज ऑफ अ स्किल एंड एक्सपर्टीज, उस पे रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट कितना है? 18%। 9% CGST and 9% IGST or CGST. So material will be charged at 4% and labor will be charged at 18%. So yes, it is a supply and it is a supply for goods or a service. It is a supply of goods at 4% of material and it is a supply of service at 18% of labor. Clear?
यस सर।
Case number 10. A is a member of club. He goes to the club and purchases goods from the club. Is it a supply?
यस सर।
How? आंसर करेक्ट है, कैसे? एक्सचेंज या मूवमेंट मुझे
एक्सचेंज गुड्स परचेस किए सर, तो सेलिंग और मूवेबल भी है।
कि अगर आप किसी भी क्लब में जाते हो तो वहाँ पे आपके क्लब की मेंबरशिप मिलती है। जैसे आपको क्लब का मेंबरशिप मिला तो आप वहाँ पे एक पेमेंट करते हो और वो पेमेंट देने के बाद आपको वो क्लब का कार्ड मिलता है। वो आप कार्ड लेके शॉप में चले गए और वहाँ से आपने कुछ गुड्स परचेज किए क्लब में से। सो इट इज अ सप्लाई। येस, इट इज अ सप्लाई। इट इज अ सप्लाई फॉर गुड्स और सर्विस। इट इज अ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स। क्लियर? Small caselets with for understanding. Now schedule number 3. Activities or transactions which shall be treated neither as a supply of goods or nor as a supply of services. So which are the various activities? Now इसके पहले हमने सारा क्या देखा था कि कौन से goods है और कौन से services है. Now we are moving towards which are the various types of activities or various types of transactions which are neither goods or neither services. First thing, सर्विसेज बाय एन एम्प्लॉय टू एन एम्प्लॉय इन द कोर्स ऑफ हिज एम्प्लॉयमेंट, कि अगर आप किसी जगह पे काम करने के लिए हो, if you are an employee at any place, then the services that have been provided by the employee to the employer are not the part of either the goods or not either the part of the services. Services by any court or a particular tribunal. So any of the court, that is either a JMFC, either a district court, sessions court, high court, Supreme Court, it is not under the purview of GST, that is goods and service tax, and they cannot be treated as the goods or they cannot be treated as in services. Functions performed by the member of parliament, member of Lok Sabha, member of Rajya Sabha and so on, or MLAs, MPs and so on. So ये इनके सारे functions जो कुछ भी perform करते वो भी सारे exempted from tax है. So it is not under the purview of GST. Services of the funeral, burial, crematorium और mortuary. So ये भी सारे services आपके जीएसटी के परव्यू के अंदर नहीं है. तो इसलिए फॉर एग्जांपल जब आप कभी जाते हो, अगर आप किसी के फ्यूनरल या बरियल या क्रेमेटोरियम में देखा, तो जो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज वहाँ पे आप परचेज करते हो, क्या फॉर एग्जांपल आपने वुड परचेज किया था या जो बरी करने के लिए कार्ड परचेज किया था, ये सारे आपको नॉन टैक्स है, दैट इज इट इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल फॉर जीएसटी एंड हेंस इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ, इट इज नाइदर अ गुड्स और नाइदर अ सर्विसेज एंड हेंस जीएसटी इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल. सेल ऑफ लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग, वाई लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग क्यों नहीं है? nor a goods or nor a service, because it is an immovable property और GST सिर्फ applicable है movable property पे. एक मिनट, I am getting a call. हेलो.
हेलो.
हाँ
सर गुड आफ्टरनून, मैं पूर्व व्यास बात कर रहा था.
हाँ, गुड आफ्टरनून.
हाँ जी सर, होप यू रिमेंबर.
Yes, yes, I do remember. You have taken the admission at our institute.
Yes.
हाँ.
Actually, sir, like for that confirmation only I have called you, sir.
हाँ.
Like वहाँ पे उसने मिनिमम अमाउंट फॉर द कंफर्मेशन ऑफ सीट पे कर दिया, राइट सर?
हाँ 10,000 ही हैज पेड आई थिंक.
हाँ हाँ
हाँ.
तो अभी कैसा, क्या कब एडमिशन चालू हो रहे हैं सर, और क्या अभी आगे का कैसा?
एज ऑफ नाउ गवर्नमेंट का तो कुछ शेड्यूल आया नहीं है रिगार्डिंग द कैप राउंड्स. So we are waiting for that confirmation. So once उनका कैप राउंड का आ जाते तो either he'll proceed with the cap round or we can continue with the direct admissions. दोनों वे प्रोसेस है अपने पास.
तो भी अभी मतलब कब तक जाएगा आपके हिसाब से?
पोस्ट दिवाली 17 या 18 तक आपको कैप राउंड्स के सारे शेड्यूल आ जाएंगे.
ओके ठीक है सर, जस्ट वही कंफर्म कर रहा था.
ओके ओके श्योर, नो इश्यूज.
ओके सर, थैंक यू सो मच सर.
वेलकम. Okay, so point number 5, sale of a land and building because it is an immovable property and GST is not applicable for the immovable property, and hence land and building is out of the purview of either goods or either of purview of services. Actionable claims other than the lottery, betting and gambling. So all types of the claim for either the bills receivable, bills payable, any of the amount that you have to recover, any of the claim that you are making under terms of insurance and so on, all these things are not under the purview of goods or a particular services because it is not visible, it is not tangible, and it cannot be transferred from one person to another person, and hence they are not under the purview of GST. Now a combination. Now अभी तक कुछ confusion, doubt है in understanding what is a goods, what is a service, and how you have to identify or how you have to differentiate goods or services में क्या क्या differentiation है. Clear? Schedule 1, 2 and 3. शेड्यूल 1 में हमने देखा था गुड्स क्या है, शेड्यूल 2 में हमने देखा था सर्विसेज क्या है, और शेड्यूल 3 में हमने देखा था व्हाट इज अ गुड एंड व्हाट इज अ सर्विस एंड विच आर द टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज विच आर नॉट अंडर द परव्यू ऑफ GST. So if it is clear with you, then we'll move further. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move ahead.
Yes, sir.
Now, going with the next unit or the subtopic, that is a composite supply. So supply by taxable person to a recipient. So same case in this consideration. Now, whenever you want to understand what is a composite supply, first thing आपको ध्यान देना है कि there should be a supply. So what is the meaning of supply? That the goods have been transferred from one place to another place, one person to another person by a taxable person to a recipient. So here major differentiation आपका कहाँ पे आ गया? There should be a supply, but that particular supply must be from a taxable person. That is, earlier the particular person has to be paid a certain amount of tax, a certain amount of GST, and then only if it is been transferred, then that particular supply will be called as a composite supply. Next thing, 2 or more taxable supplies. So here in this case, in order to comply or in order to consider supply as a composite supply, there should be at least 2 or more taxable supplies into existence. So अगर एक सप्लाई या उसके साथ और एक सप्लाई आपका कंपोजिशन में है तो आप वो कह पाओगे कि वो आपका कंपोजिट सप्लाई है. Naturally bundled taxable supply. So always it should be in a particular position that the particular combination is of a naturally bundled state. So अगर आपका उसका composition naturally bundled नहीं है तो आप वो composite supply नहीं कह पाओगे. You cannot call that particular supply as a part of an composite supply. So always it must be in a naturally bundled way. The naturally bundled goods or services must be supplied in conjunction with each other. Conjunction यानी एक साथ में. So always the particular supply that you are making for the two goods and services, it must be together. So unless and until they are not together, they are not being jointly with each other, you cannot call it as a composite supply. And lastly, one of the goods or the services must be a principal supply. So either, now if the goods and services of either of a nature of 2 or more, then out of these 2 or more, one must be a principal and one must be an alternative or supplementary supply. So in this way, you have to identify which type of supply it is and how you can call it as a composite supply. Outcome of a composite supply shall be treated as the supply of principal supply, and the applicable tax rate at the on the entire transaction would be the tax rate applicable to the principal supply. So taxability आपकी कैसी होगी? Now in this case what you are seeing, there is a supply of 2 or more taxable goods, so naturally bundled. So what happened in this case? Either there is one commodity, no, there are two commodity or more than two commodity. But what you have to do, the tax that has to be applied on the entire goods and services or the commodity is on the basis of the principal supply. So जो आपका principal supply होगा उस पे आपका tax rate identify किया जाएगा and the tax will be charged or the GST rate will be applicable on the principal amount of goods and services or the principal amount of commodity that has been seen for. Now let's take an example of what is the meaning of composite supply. For example, you are going to purchase a pen. कि अगर आप किसी शॉप में चले जाते हो और वो शॉप में जब आप पेन परचेस करते हो तो आपका मेन पर्पस पेन परचेस करने का क्या है कि आपको सिर्फ वो पेन से लिखना आना चाहिए. So it is the main purpose. So that is the principal supply. Now at the same point of time, whenever you are purchasing a pen, is it understood or it is taken for granted that the cap must be provided with that particular pen? Please unmute yourself so that we can. Sir. आपको अगर पेन परचेज करना है तो आप उसके साथ क्या इट इज अंडरस्टूड दैट द कैप मस्ट बी प्रोवाइडेड? इट इज नॉट अंडरस्टूड. वो ट्रेडर क्या करता है, एज अ पार्ट ऑफ एन जेस्चर, एज अ पार्ट ऑफ एन सप्लीमेंट्री कमोडिटी, ही इज प्रोवाइडिंग द कैप फॉर यू. सो इट इज नॉट एन मैंडेटरी कि आपको कैप देना चाहिए या नहीं देना चाहिए. सो व्हाट नाउ व्हेनेवर योर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट्स, नाउ आगे जाके मैं कहता हूँ कि अगर आप कहते हो कि मुझे पेन चाहिए, सो व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ द पेन? टू राइट ऑन समथिंग और टू राइट ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर पेपर. So to write on a particular paper, you can just use ink also. वो आप ink ले सकते हो और वो आप ink भी directly pen वो आप directly ink paper पे भी लिख सकते हो. But for this particular consideration, what you have done, you have prepared a particular case. In that particular case, a refill has been inserted and accordingly the pen starts writing. So in order to keep preserve, in order to keep in a safe mode, the cap is additionally produced and accordingly the goods and services have been manufactured and accordingly it is been produced. So hence, now here you can see two or more taxable supply. First thing what you have done, you have prepared the body of that particular pen. Then second thing, you have prepared the refill of that particular pen. Third thing, you have prepared the nib of that particular pen accordingly. And lastly, you have prepared a particular cap in order to protect that particular pen. So it is a naturally bundled. So what happened? In order to call a particular pen in a complete form, what you have combined, you have bundled all the things together. But one of the goods or the service must be a principal supply. So what is the principal supply? Either the refill that you are using or either the pen or the particular case that you are using for. So in this way, the composite supply. So what you have to do, you have to charge the amount of tax, you have to charge the amount of GST on the entire pen. So on the entire pen you cannot charge. So accordingly, what is the manufacturing value of the particular case or the body? On that particular thing only, the GST rate will be applicable. Next, time of the supply. So new registration section 31(3)(a), it specifically defines what is the time of your supply and when the particular time of supply can be identified. First thing, 1 month from the date of issuance of the certificate of registration. So unless and until your composite limit, that is your threshold limit, we have seen that is 20 lakhs or 1 crore. Accordingly, if as soon as early as possible, if your threshold limit is been crossed, then accordingly, whenever you register with the GST authorities or the GST council, your time of supply starts. So within 1 month of duration, you have to start of the issuance of the certificate. और जैसे ही आपको आपका certificate of registration मिल जाएगा, immediately your time of supply starts. Continuous supply of goods and services under section 31(4), before or after the time of statement of account is been issued or each such of payment is been received, whichever is earlier. So as soon as you prepare your statement of account, that is once your balance sheet is been prepared or once your payment of the entire commodity is been received, whichever duration is been earlier, the same duration will be conducted as a continuous supply of goods and services. So there are two considerations. First thing is the new registration. So जैसे ही आपका नया रजिस्ट्रेशन होता है और नया रजिस्ट्रेशन होने के बाद within 1 month अगर आपका सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन मिल जाता है, then your time of supply starts immediately. Or in second case, if there is a continuous supply of goods and services and whenever you prepare your statement of account, that is your balance sheet, trading and P&L, and at the same point of time, your supply or the continuous time of supply starts for the payment. Second thing, the third thing, goods on sale or return basis, that is section 31(7). So earlier of the time of supply or 6 months from the date of removal. So if you are selling the goods and if the goods have been returned to you, so whichever time is earlier, that is whenever you have communicated to that particular seller, or whenever within the 6 months you have been removed from that particular return basis, that is 6 months from the date of removal. So either of these two situations are made applicable, then accordingly your time of supply can be identified and the rate will be made applicable, and you have to file the transactions or you have to file the return accordingly. None of the above scenarios. So if none of this above scenario is made applicable, then section 31(1) applies for this particular case. First thing, supply involving movement of goods, that is before or at the time of removal of goods for the supply. So involvement movement of goods, if the goods have been moving from one place to another place, then you have to identify at what time or at what place the goods have been moving, and on that particular basis the supply will be charged. And lastly, supply doesn't involve movement of goods. So if there is no involvement of the movement of goods, so before at the time of delivery. So if the delivery of the goods has been undertaken, or if the goods of delivery of the goods is not been undertaken, then accordingly the rate of supply or the time of supply can be made applicable. So in short, the time of the supply of goods, that is earlier of the three events. First thing, the date of issue of invoice. So जब कभी आपका invoice बना था, या तो वो date आपकी time of supply रहेंगी, the date on which invoice is required to be issued. That is, if the invoice is to be required to be issued on, for example, if you have prepared the invoice as on today, that is on 4th of October, 4th of November, and the invoice is been supposed to be issued on the date of 11th of November, or the date on which the payment is received. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपका इनवॉइस 4 तारीख का था, दैट इज 4th of November, लेकिन आपको पेमेंट 3rd of November को ही मिल गया, देन योर टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी 3rd of November or 4th of November or 11th of November. So these are the three cases or three alterations in which the time of supply can be identified. So whichever duration or whichever of the event is earlier, that particular thing or that particular time will be conducted or will be called as a time of supply. Time of supply of services. So here we have seen the time of supply of goods. Now time of supply of services. So same case applicable under section 31(3)(a), 3(b), 31(3)(5), and so on. Okay. Any difficulty at this stage? Would you like to ask anything?
No, sir.
Okay, chalo. It's 3 o'clock. We'll conclude. We'll start with the valuation of supply tomorrow, and then we'll move with the 4th chapter, GSTR returns. Example
Okay,
is
sir.
also okay. Yeah, chalo. Thank you so much everyone for joining. Good day.
Okay, sir.
Stop. Done.
Some systems do not have so that have options. Some yet they have some systems do not have a so raise the hand so that it become difficult. Everybody is listening. Everybody is listening. Yeah. That will ensure that is not on. Somebody there are critical thinking subjects, so everybody is not analyzing anything. So what we will do is that now start discussion on this because more than 10 people are saying they read the case. So now you can remove your these and objects. That's it. It's not linked, but I just wanted to ensure that people are with me or not. Okay, you see, class also we do this several times like that. Whether you are listening, you are not listening. If you are not listening, I will force you to listen like that. Okay.
क्लू गेला की वरती विचारायला काय रे ते कोण गेलं असं म्हणेल तर सरळ MBA चे लोक मरतायत तशीच म्हणतील नाही गेले काय सुट्टीवर टेन्शन मुळे राठोडनं नाके मेसेज ध्यान देवन कभी हाल के पूछे नहीं बाबू मुझे कभी कहीं नहीं उनको मानी पूछे बात चाहिए क्यों ट्रेन नहीं ट्रेन को नहीं बकट चालू हो हाँ बिल पीछे हो हाँ हाँ हो हाँ मॅडम ट्रेन चालू झाल्या का
चालू आहे काहीतरी इंद्रायणी चालू आहे त्याच्यानंतर कोयना चालू आहे आणि डेक्कन चालू आहे
किती वाजता ठाण्याला जायचंय मला
ठाण्याला मला वाटतं विचारायला पाहिजे मला ट्रेनचं एक्झॅक्ट टायमिंग जेवढं माहित नाही
अच्छा तुम्ही नाही गेलात कधी ट्रेननी
कमी रेअरली म्हणजे पुण्याला मी काढली यायची मोस्टली नाही लोकल एक्सप्रेस ट्रेन कमी तुम्हाला ठाण्याला जायचं किती वाजता जायचं
तिथे 10:30 पर्यंत पोहोचायचंय असं आहे
पोहोचायचंय
हा
त्यांनी इतकी वर्ष अपडाऊन केलं तर सगळं व्यवस्थित आहे
अच्छा
झोपेत नव्हतं
आणि सिंहगड सुरू नाही झाली ना सिंहगड एक्सप्रेस माहिती आहे
अच्छा
6:05 ला असते ना ती
वाचून घ्या बॉम्बे जाऊ म्हणजे सवारला ट्रेन काही चालू सांगणार नियर बाय क्या कैंपस है सामान આવી ગયું ડીમાર્ટ કેમ રે કનીશ એ મને છોડીને જોઉં છું તમે મને સાંજને પાંચ કેમ अच्छा ठीक है ओके
ए सरांनी तर मेल पाठवलाय ना आज 11 वाजता. आले कसे नाही म्हणताय.
बॉम्बे साईडला तर डेक्कन क्वीनच आहे आता तुमची बस ठाणे थांबत नाही कल्याणला थांबते मला वाटतं आता मेट्रो थोडं चेक करा म्हणतात
हा डेक्कन क्वीन डायरेक्ट दादरला थांबते.
आणि मग कल्याण नाही तर
मग कल्याण उतरून जाऊ शकतो.
हा तसं
तिथनं लोकल ठाणे
7:10 ला काहीतरी आहे ना डेक्कन क्वीन त्याच्याने मग तुम्हाला बुकिंग करायला लागेल विदाउट बुकिंग होत नाहीये गाड्यांना कंपल्सरीच पडत असतं देखील की बुकिंग करायला सांगतात म्हणून जे रिझर्वेशन वाले आहेत ना त्यांना चालवलं